Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to break down MEDDPICC. Now, that's a mouthful, I know, but it's a framework designed to bring almost military-grade precision to the chaotic world of complex sales. If you've ever felt like you're flying blind on a really high-stakes deal, well, this is the system that's going to light up the entire dashboard for you. So, picture this. We've all been there, right? You've got a deal that feels like a total lock. The meetings were fantastic. They absolutely loved the demo, and you're already mentally spending that commission check. And then, crickets. Just silence. Your emails go unread, your calls head straight to voicemail, and the deal just evaporates. It's got to be one of the most frustrating feelings in the sales world. But what if you could sidestep all that gut-wrenching uncertainty? I mean, what if you had a clear, systematic way to actually diagnose the health of your deal, to see the red flags before they pop up, and to know exactly what move to make next? Well, that's precisely what this framework is all about. Think of MEDDPICC as a GPS for your deal. It's basically a checklist, right? But it's a checklist of the 8 most critical components you have to understand and, more importantly, influence to close those big, complex sales. It's designed to take the guesswork out of the equation and replace it with a clear, repeatable process. All right, so let's dive right in. We're going to start with the first 2 letters, and these are all about the absolute foundations of any deal. The money, so the quantifiable value, and the person who actually has the power to spend it. So we're kicking things off with M and E. You can think of these as your starting blocks, and you've got to get these right. Seriously, if you fumble these 2, the rest of the framework, it just kind of falls apart. First up, metrics. Now, this has nothing to do with your cool product features. It's all about the customer's bottom line, their economic reality. Your job here is to turn what your solution does into hard numbers that they actually care about, a quantifiable return on investment. So instead of saying, hey, we'll make you more efficient, you say, we can slash your operational costs by $200,000 a year. You see the difference? That's the language of business, and that's what gets budgets approved. Next, you have the economic buyer. Now listen, this isn't just any manager. This is the one person, the only person who can say yes when everyone else says no. And even more crucial, they can say no when everybody else is saying yes. They have the final say on the budget, and your mission is to find them, meet them, and make sure what you're offering aligns with their biggest priorities. Okay, so you've nailed down the value, and you know who holds the purse strings. Great. But now you have to navigate the maze of how they actually make a choice. And that brings us to the 2 Ds. And this is where it gets really interesting, because we've got 2 Ds. Now, they sound similar, I get it, but they cover 2 totally different parts of the customer's world. One is the how, and the other is the what. The decision process, that's their internal playbook. It's the step-by-step map they follow to get to a yes. You need to know it inside and out. What are the specific stages? Who has to sign off on what and in what order? If you don't know that their legal team always takes 30 days to review a contract, your timeline is a work of fiction and your forecast is just a guess. And then there's the decision criteria. This is their scorecard. It's the checklist of specific requirements they're going to use to judge you against everybody else. Now, your job is twofold. First, you have to find out what's on that list, but the real pro move, it's influencing what goes on that list in the first place. If you can add a criterion where you're super strong and your competitor is weak, well, you've just started to tilt the game in your favor. All right, now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. We understand how they decide, but what kicks off the whole need in the first place? And what are the logistical hoops you have to jump through to actually get the deal done? So now let's look at P for paper process and I for identify pain. And you have to understand these 2 are completely linked, because without the I, the pain, nobody, and I mean nobody, is going to put themselves through the P, which is the, let's be honest, often painful paper process. The paper process. This is where so many deals go to die, right at the 1-yard line. This is all the procurement stuff, the legal contracts, the vendor setup forms. You've got to understand this process way early on so you can bake in the extra time and account for all the people involved. You can't let a 30-day legal review blow up your quarter just because you didn't see it coming. And now for what might be the single most important part of this entire framework, the pain. This is the engine of the deal. It's the why. Why are they even talking to you? Why do they need to do something now? If there's no real significant business pain, there is no urgency, there is no budget, and there is no deal. Period. It's that simple. So if you step back and look at it from the customer's point of view, it's actually a pretty logical path, isn't it? First, they use their criteria to figure out what they need. Then they follow their process to figure out how they're going to decide. And finally, they navigate all their paperwork to figure out how they're actually going to buy it. Your job is to be their guide through every single one of those steps. Okay, last but definitely not least, we've got the people. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, sales is all about people. This last part covers your most important friend and your biggest enemy in any deal. And that brings us to the final two C's, champion and competition. And believe me, these two forces are in a constant tug of war inside every single major deal you'll ever work on. So, your champion. This is not just a friendly person you have lunch with. No way. This is your internal salesperson. They're the one with influence who is literally selling on your behalf in meetings that you are not even in. A real champion has a personal stake in your success, and they'll feed you that priceless inside info that helps you win. And then there's the competition, and you can never afford to ignore them. And I'm not just talking about knowing their product features. You have to understand their strategy. What story are they telling? Who's their champion inside the account? Ignoring your competition? That's like walking into a boxing ring with a blindfold on. You're just asking to get knocked out. So let's just boil it down to this. Your champion? They're your internal ally, your advocate. They're working to build you up. The competition? They are the external threat, and you better believe they have their own champion working to tear you down. Your entire goal is to empower your ally to overcome that threat. So let's wrap this all up. As you can see, MEDDPICC isn't just some random checklist to tick off. It's a whole operating system for how you approach a complex sale. It forces you to prove your value with numbers, to get to the real power, to understand the rules of the game you're playing, to anchor everything to a real business pain, and finally, to master the human drama between your champion and your competition. And that is the MEDDPICC framework in a nutshell. It's an incredibly powerful tool for getting clarity and control. So I'll leave you with a question, and I want you to really think about this. As you look at your most important deal in your pipeline right now, which one of these 8 letters is your biggest blind spot? Because the answer to that question could be the very key to winning the deal.